Hi, everyone. Hi, Christine. Hi, Lynn. It's so quiet. How's everybody doing? I have to show you this. I was cutting some fabric today to make the sample Easter basket. And look what the salvage was for all the colors. You know, it's how it's usually a circle. So I have to save it. I got to start saving these again. So when I get a bunch of them together, I can make like a little zipper bag. But look, they're little bunnies. Look, they're little bunnies. Now remind me where I put that, okay? And let's see if I need to go. Oh, wrong way. Back a little bit. Oh, too far. Oh, sorry. Close your eyes for a minute. I'll tell you when it's good. Okay, I think that's good. I'll face this way. Oh, look. There, my third hand. So let's see. We just got a couple minutes. Oh, we're good. So we got about 1 minute to go. So I was just using up some scraps. This particular one is using 2.5-inch strips. And you have to cut them the right length. I got something pop up on my computer, sorry. You have to cut them the right length to make this. So normally it's 3 times, the length is 3 times the width. But in this case, let's see, are we ready? I gotta wait. I can't say much more. I gotta. Oh, hi, Rhonda. How's it going? How's the weather down your way? So normally you would cut them 3 times the width, but in this case, because I wanted to use the actual die from the plus 6.5. So 2.5 and 2.5 is 5, and then 2.5 would have been 7.5, but I cut them 6.5 because I cut them to the die. But we'll talk about that in a second. Got a piece of tape stuck there. Oh, did you hear that car going by? I don't think it's going to make it. Okay, are we ready to go? So I'm going to just pause for a minute. No, we're good. I was going to say I'm going to pause, but I don't need to because I had the music beforehand. Okay, so tonight, generally it's called a braided table runner, but you could use this, and I'm going to do a smaller one for class. You could use this for a border on a quilt. You could have it in a bag, a tote. You could do one, you could do a bunch. So I didn't want to, I'm trying not to have us try to do some big project every week because it's just too hard. But again, you can take your sample that you make tonight, write some notes for yourself that mean something to you, and put this with it and put it in the resource book. And then you'll have it when you later on you go, oh yeah, I remember that, and I want to, you know, I have a quilt or I have whatever, and I want to use that, and then you're all set to go. So for this one, I use the 2.5 rectangle from the Build-A-Block Plus. So you'll notice, if you have yours, there's a 2.5 here, and it's 2.5 by 6.5, but there's a 2.5 here, 2.5 by 4.5. We want the longer one to use. And if I was going to use the rectangle for the 1.5, I would use this longer one. There's another 1.5 right here, shorter one. So you have the same width for the 2.5 and the 1.5 with two different lengths. Okay, so I actually use this 2.5 by 6.5 to make this sample that I made. And then to start with, I just needed a square. I didn't want a whole strip rectangle because I'd have to cut all that off. So I just used the 2.5-inch square, and that comes either from your Build-A-Block, or I have these little individual ones, but so you can buy them. It's just all squares, or it's just all half squares, or it's just all quarter squares. So you can cut out two of something when you're working with your Build-A-Block. So I just grabbed the 2.5 out of here, which now I'll put back. No, I'll leave it out. What the heck? So either way. Now the other thing you can do is you can use your strip set, but you have to remember you have no cut line at the bottom and top. Because it's made for doing strips, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to get around that. So if we're all set, oh, Rhonda, you cooked out? Rhonda, I bet it was good too. Okay, so this time so I had some strips already cut. So this time I'm going to cut using the die from the strip set. Remember, it has no cut here and no cut here. So I thought, rather than cut it exact, which you could, because I'm using these anyways, I would cut it just a little longer. And so this one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one is 5 1/4. So what do I need? What did I say this was? 1.5, 1.5 is 3, 5 1/2, right? 3 times longer. So I could fold my fabric and cut a long piece, and then cut it into 5 1/2-inch strips. That would work pretty easy. But I'm going to just take these leftovers, and I'm going to. So today, so you don't have to listen to that whining like last time. So today I'm using the Gemini Junior plates, but I have the regular Gemini out, and I can, instead of, like, if you're feeding into your Junior, you'd go this way. And if you feed into the regular size Gemini, I can't say the big anymore because they got the big Pro now, but they would go in your bigger Gemini, the width. And you'd know because it won't work going this way. The sensors are out here on all the machines, so it has to know there's something out there. So if you put it in the big Gemini going short side in, it just wouldn't do anything. So you can't go wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and put these on, and I'm not going to concern myself with where I'm putting it, this die here and here, because there's no cut there. So if you're using these strip dies, so I want to make sure I don't confuse you. If you're using the strip die, then I would probably take my one piece of fabric, fold it a few times, make it a strip like normal, and then cut that strip into 5.5 or whatever size you need it to be. That'd be pretty easy. I'm just doing it this way because I had these already cut. And I think I got 4 layers there. And so I'm going to put on my plastic plate, I'm going to call this, I'm trying to remember to call that the frosted plate. The frosted plate, and then the clear plate. And I'm just going to run it through. So if you've got something to do, go ahead and run them through. And if you have scraps, just pile them all up. Well, not all of them, but pile a bunch of them up. 6 or 8 of them if you want. And run them through. And you can turn this on an angle. You're leaving it straight on the fabric, but you can turn it on an angle on your plate so that it isn't so stressful for the machine to run it through. Sometimes if you do that, you can get away with more layers. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take that off. And I'm going to go ahead and cut my other pile. And at the same time, I need 1 square. I have 2 here, but I need 1 square. Remember, because that's the one, that's this little guy right here at the bottom. So I can go ahead and put that on too. And again, I'll turn it a little bit. So everybody's on, and I'm just going to run that through. And then we'll get back to what to do with this. Okay, so if you have more to, hi, Process. Excuse me. So if you have more to cut, you can go ahead and be cutting while I'm showing you this. So I'm going to take my 2 squares, and let's hang him up there. How's that? Here we go. And I'm just going to put the stuff I have cut on my machine so I know where it is. And let me just put my little guys right there for now. I don't want to go too far away with my pressing mat. So you can see that it cut the sides, but not the ends. Okay? So, but you normally wouldn't have this part just hanging off doing nothing. You would fold it over. So take one color, fold it a few times, cut the strip. So when you cut the strip, and we did that, I think we did that last week. So when you do that, so I'm going to pretend this is my folded over. You want to make sure that your fabric is inside the edges because the edges aren't going to cut. So if I was folding it over, I'd have it probably about like that. And then you'd unfold it and cut it. But if you have little pieces like I do, odds and ends. So I'm gonna cut this to the, let me see, I got some more. What did I cut them? I cut them 5. So I'm gonna cut with my regular rotary cutter, and ruler. I want to make sure that I have the straight line on the cut line. Oh. And I'm going to the very end of the cut line there. I should have had, let me get my bigger rotary cutter. My little rotary cutter, I had too many layers for it. Let me just finish this one up. So I was pushing my fabric along more than actually working with it. And I'll use this ruler. Okay, then I'm going to turn it around. So you would cut one end, make sure it's nice and straight, and then get to the other end. And I cut this at 5 because it's about this strip is about that long. Oh, that die, I'm sorry. And again, I want to place my ruler so my ruler so the straight line is along the cut edge of my strip. Oh. There you go. I just got a couple of threads there. Now you notice I didn't do the sawing so that it ends up looking like the beavers took it apart for you. Okay, so I'm going to just put my fabrics there, and I'm going to go ahead and do this one. So if you can see, I'm coming up to where the end of the cut is. And I'm going to make sure that my line is straight and I'm pulling this fabric away so you can see the mark there. I want to make sure that my ruler is straight with the strip I cut. I don't care about anything else. So see? And then just turn it around. And I'm measuring. Let me move this down just a tad. There we go. I'm measuring, I'm coming to a line here, and I'm making sure it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to put my ruler on the 5 of my mat, but I'm going to make sure that I have my ruler straight with my strip. See, now you can see, so my ruler is straight with the cut edge of my strip. Oh no, I'm on the, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay. Had a moment there, because I wasn't starting on the 1. And those came right away. Okay, so did that make sense to everyone? Everybody got to nod their head yes. Well, I got some thumbs up and a waving hand, I think it is. Okay. So we need to plan this out before we start sewing. So I'm going to, how many colors are, I think, well, I was going to say, I thought I had another color somewhere. Okay. So I could do it, the yellows and the blues, or I could mix it up like this, or I think I'll do that. Because I did the yellows, then the blue, and then the lighter. So I'm going to separate these. And And how many you need is going to depend on how long you want it. So I'll start with this light one. And then I guess I'm going to this dark one. And then I don't want to go dark light. I mean light on one side and dark on the other. And then I could start the pattern over again. Oh, I got another color. Oh, yeah. So I'm going to end up with this guy goes next. And then I'll put this one. And I don't want to put them in the same order, so then I'll put this one. And then I'm going to have them opposite. So you could have them coming up in pairs. I want to make sure that I mix it up more. So I don't want all the dark yellow on one side, all the dark blue on one side, so I mixed them up. And okay, and then this little guy, your little square, is going to go right there. Okay? Now, I probably should have had a bigger square here because I made these longer. And if I cut this, I have to cut it here. We'll see. I'll do mine. This is a practice one. I'll do it. I'll volunteer. But if you're not sure, you can always put a longer one here. Okay, but when we cut, let me use this. When we cut, we've got to cut across right here. So you lose all that. Now, if I put this one on, and we're going to cut across right here, I'm okay. So I'll use my little one. But either way works. And I'm obviously I'm not going to use this to cut with. I was just showing you so you could see through it. If I put my ruler down, you can't see through it. We have to make sure that when we cut, when we square it up, so to speak, we got to have, like, in other words, I can't cut down here. I've got 2 holes of no fabric right there. You see that? Let me come back in again a little bit. So if I can't cut across here, there's no fabric there. When I trim up, and we'll trim up at the end, when I trim up, there's got to be fabric under the whole ruler where I'm cutting. Not under this part, but where I'm cutting along, there has to be fabric all the way across. Does that kind of make sense? Stay there. Okay? So we're going to leave this in this order as we sew. So let me, oh, that's applause. Oh, thanks, Rhonda. Rhonda is my interpreter for hand signals and emoji stuff. Hand signals. That sounds like the old school driving. Okay, so we're going to start here. We're going to leave this just like this. Okay? Now, I guess if you really wanted to get random scrappy about it, you could take all these and put them into a paper bag. And when you pull one out, you can't put it back. How's that? Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this one, the square, up to the edge of this first rectangle, and I'm going to put a pin because, let me flip it back without making too much of a mess here. So that little square goes in there. So that means that we need to sew the square to this part of the, oh, can't see, I'm using a pin and you can't see it. There we go. Now that blends in with the blue. Hold on. Yeah, let's try this. There we go. Okay, so this square is going to be sewn to this strip in this spot. So when we flip it up onto the rectangle, when we flip the square up onto the rectangle, we need to put a pin in. Remember how we always pin on the side we're going to sew on, so that when we come over to the machine, you're going to think that you're going to be sewing across the top. And you're going to think, how does this work? I'm sewing on the side. I got fabric left hanging down. It'll all work out. So I am on stitch. So I have a baby lock a brother. I'm using the piecing stitch. So on the bigger machines, it's under the Q tab. And it's number Q02. On some of the smaller machines, you'll see a straight stitch with a little letter P. Well, it's a capital P, but a little letter P. Next to it, P is for piecing, and there'll be a few to pick from. And this stitch is, you can see it on the screen, it's it's right of center. And I'm using my J foot. If you're using your 1/4-inch foot with a guide, you'd stay on 1-03, or your regular straight stitch. I should have them memorized by this time. Okay, so because I put my pin in, I know it's not straight here, hold on. Okay, because I put my pin in, I know I'm sewing on this side, because I'm telling you, you're naturally going to want to stitch along the top, because you have all this fabric hanging down. So we're just going to stitch from the top down, and you can go a stitch or two past the edge of the square, that's fine. Oh, I have to stand up. I didn't set up for the camera to sew, because you're only going to be sewing for a second, and then you'll be done. You'll get seasick. And I'm going to use my pressing mat. I know, after I tell you not to do that. I'm going to use my pressing mat and press as I go. I'm going to press. I'm not going to iron. So I'm going to flip this over, flipping the square over, and press. You see, my iron's not moving. See how nice and flat it is. Okay? So I'm going to put this guy back in here, put everybody back together. I made a mess now. Hold on. What have I done wrong here? Oh, that's right. Had a moment there. Is that how it was? I don't remember how it was. Oh, no, I got to have this one over here. I remember now. Phew, I had a moment. Because I wanted my yellows, and I don't want the same colors on the same side. So you can still see the bottom. So see, if I put this right back in, now I know what to do next. Now, if you look, I can't flip this one over because this guy isn't sewn on yet. So I'd be flipping it over to some air above. I only want air below. So this yellow one and the white match. So I'm going to flip that over. I'm going to stick a pin in the side I'm going to sew. And it doesn't matter if you sew from this way down or flip it over and go from this way down. Whatever makes you happy. I'll go this way. So that I can see I want to make sure I'm lined up down here. So I'll come over. My pin is over on the right. I forgot to let me make my machine light. Let me make my machine light less. There we go. Sorry, I was actually sewing and I needed light today. So I can't get straightened up on my table. If you have your extension table, you can work right up on your extension table. Okay, so we're going to be sewing down this side, and yes, there's going to be some left over of the bottom fabric or top, whichever one. You're not gonna line them up here. You're lining them up along this side, and you're lining them up on the side where your little square is. So don't worry about this end. And if you want to, you can start to sew a little bit on the one fabric. Just don't make sure you're not too far back that the top fabric flips back. Okay, I'm going to bring it back over, put it right back in its spot, flip that top fabric over, and you'll have you won't be putting your ironing station back and forth and back and forth. I'm just doing it so you can see, which keeps me knocking off my. So I made sure that I don't have a crease. Okay? And we're going to just put it back where it belongs. We doing okay? I was looking at this one and I did it opposite. Did I? Oh, my mistake. This goes down here. I knew there was something not right there. All right, hopefully you haven't stitched yet. And that's from me moving these for that ironing station. So I got to take that out. And I'm just going to iron this flat again because I ironed the seam allowance. And then I'll show you what I did. So when I put my ironing station down, my ironing mat, I move this. And what I want to make sure I do, let me move this apart. So here's a left, I should have a right. And see, I had two lefts. So left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. See, remember how I moved this one over? Oh no, this is going to go here. All right, hold on. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. Remember before this was over here and I was trying to move it around? That's because I was not lined up right. And again, you won't be moving this back and forth. I just moved it because if I put the ironing mat on top of this, everything will come up in the air. So we want a left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. So you should never have two strips on one side even. Okay? Does that make sense? Oh, hi, Cindy. You arrived late. That's okay. We don't mind. Okay? So if you want to make note, and do your square after, because it's easier to know where it belongs. So left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. And when you line it up, you have the right one down. The left one should be even here. Then the right one will be even here. The left one, even here. Oh, here. Where am I? Right, even here. Left, even here. Oh, see, I'm messing it up again. I got to quit touching it. Does that make sense? We good? Cindy, when I first read yours, I thought it said you were jumping in the lake. I think I need new glasses. I thought, wow, it's not that warm out. Okay, so now we're lining up on this side. So I'm going to flip that right one over on our, what will we call it? The part that's done. I'll think of something. We want to line up here on the top and on the right. Doesn't matter anything else, okay? We want to make sure we put our pin in on the side we're going to sew, because when you turn it over, there's not a lot to sew on. So you can stitch, and you can come down and stitch a couple past. It isn't going to hurt anything. So I'm going to take it to the machine. I'm going to make sure I'm all lined up. Lining up for your 1/4 inch like you always do. And if you don't know how to find a stitch, you just peek under, and I can see there's my yellow square. You can stitch way past, isn't going to hurt anything. You just don't want to be, you don't want to be short. Okay, I'm going to bring it back, flip this, the strip we just added on. Now, you're going to have this little, let's see, how can I, so you don't want to open it up, because the seam, I'm trying to think of how to say this, because the seam allowance is here, it's going to naturally fold this fabric, and that's fine, because it's going to get cut off. So it doesn't ever have a perfect folder. It's just going to, it's going to naturally crease. Oh, see, I ironed and I should have pressed. I don't know, these strips seem so long. Okay, so I'm going to slide it back where it belongs. I did a right. Now I should be doing a left. And if I look, I can see that along here and along here, that yellow one is lined up with. You see that okay? I can't turn it this way. I don't have enough room. I'll turn it towards you when I get further down. So I'm going to just, and I always put my couple fingers here, because when you flip it over, you can move it. So I'm going to flip this down, and I want to line up on the underneath with the underneath fabric. Doesn't matter. Remember, we're not lining up down here. Okay? And we want to put a pin on the side we're sewing, because you're going to go over to your machine and you're going to think that you're going to stitch up here, and then it would just flip up into nowhere land. Okay? And again, you can go from this side or from this side. I'll go from this side this time just to show you that it doesn't really matter. So again, I'm lined up with my square fabric section on this side and along here. Not where these two, see, you can, oh, there, you can see better now. See, the white fabric is way down from this fabric. Okay? When you're doing this braided runner, there's really no way around having some waste. Because I could feel someone thinking, well, you're wasting fabric. But it's okay. Think of all the things you cut wrong, and then you won't feel so bad. Actually, you'll probably feel worse. Okay, I'm going to bring it back in the little area, And I'm going to flip this one up. Okay? And let's just look at the back and make sure it's all nice and neat. And we can slide it back into its spot. When you slide it back in, you're automatically going to see that the right lines up, because see how the left one is way out there. So once you have these laid down and you bring this back up, don't start rearranging to match this, because then you'll be off. So we did a left, now we're going to do a right. And again, we're just going to flip it over, lining up the top and the right side. And remember, your pin is on the right. You see my pin? Okay? And see, I'm on just on my regular underneath fabric, and I went a couple stitches more, and that's fine. It isn't going to hurt anything. Okay, I'm going to bring this back, flip it over, okay, how are we looking? And then going to slide this back in. Okay, if you were doing these and you were pulling them out of the bag, I should make you do that some class, but you're home, you'll cheat, I know you will. So you put them all in a bag, you're just going to go left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. But if you want to, if you want to organize them in a certain way, you need to lay them out and leave it just like this to work on. Okay, so we did a right, now we're going to do the left. So I'm going to flip it down. And this is how I would normally do it. I wouldn't normally pick it up to line it up. I just have to stand up so I can see. And I'm going to put a pin in on the side I'm going to sew before I even pick it up. And I can flip it over this way to sew. I'm going to sew from this side. So I'm going to come again from where there's more fabric, the underneath fabric. And once I have it on the machine correctly, I can take my pin out, and if I need to adjust my fabric a little bit, I'm already lined up and know which side I'm stitching on. Okay? And I'm bringing it back, flipping it up. Oh, I gotta get out of my own way here. Or if you have your ironing board next to you or a little ways away, take it to iron first. Or to press. And then slide it back in where it belongs. Is anybody stitching along? I think Christine was. She told me at the very beginning, okay, let's sew. So, okay, everybody with me so far? It's not hard. But this is how, when you're doing something on this kind of V shape, this is how it works. And you'll see when we get ready to cut, see, it doesn't, these pieces don't need to keep getting longer and longer because we're going to cut like right here. So that's why these should always be all the same size. You're not making them longer to keep matching this because it's going to get cut. It won't be right because our concentration is the middle. Okay, so I slid this back up. I'm going to flip. I did a left. Now I'm going to do a right. Hopefully, yes. I'm going to go ahead and line it up. Now I'm going to mess this one up just a tad. Well, it won't be that drastic. There we go. And you'll see in a minute, in case this happens to you. So we're going to go ahead and sew. Take my pin out, make sure I get everything really lined up well. And I'm going to flip this up. And I'm going to show you what I did just in case it happens to you. I don't want you to make a habit of it, though. Oh, Christine, you're trying. That's all that matters, Christine. Just you got to try. So, in this case, do you see how the yellow is out past the blue? You see? So I'm going to trim that off. Now, if it was a little shorter, I wouldn't trim this guy. I'm only trimming this off because I've got a little extra here. So that when I cut this, if I'm just a little off, hopefully I'll be okay. We'll find out, won't we? So if I need to trim that just a tad, I'm going to line my ruler up with the piece that's right. And I'm also going to make sure that my lines across are matching my seams. And just trim that little piece off. I don't want you to make a habit of it because it'll keep getting longer and longer, and then you will have an issue, okay? And I'm going to just bring that right back in where it goes. I did a right. Now I'm going to do a left. And I can see when I bring it back in, see how it lines up with that one? Okay? Right, left, right, left. Can you go left, right, maybe? Oh, we did go left, right, didn't we? Left, right, yep. Sorry. Can you go the other way? I guess you can. If you're left-handed, you want to do it what's natural. So if you're left-handed, you may want to start down here working with the right side first. Whichever you start with, just keep going left, right, or right, left. Okay, and I'm going to line it up. I'm going to stick my pin in the side I'm going to sew on. You notice I'm holding on to my fabric. Well, my hand's probably in your way. I'm holding on my fabric until I'm done sewing. So I'm out far enough, and I can see I'm a little wavy. So I'm just going to set that stitch, which you probably should do on every one of them, and then just flip it. Oh, hot. I don't know I think my iron's dying because it's getting so hot that I switch. The fabric can burn my fingers, never mind the iron. Okay, sliding that back into position. Everybody good? So when I slide that, I did a left. Now I'm going to do a right. And when I slide it up, this guy's all ready to line up for me. I'm going to flip it over. And I really want to try hard to line that up. I don't want to have to trim if I don't have to. Because what happens when you start getting loosey-goosey with your lining up, it just gets worse. It never gets better. Let's see if I can keep my hand out of your way. So you notice, because these strips are all the same length, you're never sewing more than whatever this 6, 7, whatever inches are. You'd think it would keep getting longer and longer, but it doesn't. Oh, look, I ended up with the 2 blues on the same side. How did I do that? Now, I will tell you that if this was actually going to be something, I would take that out and move it. But I really can't because of these two. Oh, you know why? Because I forgot to add in another one of these. Because I only have 2 left and they need to be this way. So I forgot to put this fella back in. Okay, so we come back in. We did a right. Now we're going to do a left. So this whole project only takes 1 pin. How's that? I'm holding this fabric as I'm kind of scooching the top guy into place. If you keep picking it up, laying it down, picking it up, laying it down, you'll never get it right. So you have to learn how to scooch. But if I have to hold this fabric when I scooch this one. Okay? And yes, I keep putting my pin back in the pin cushion. Can't help myself. And when I'm doing this, what I'm doing is I'm just pushing that seam out so I don't get a crease there. I don't want to be ironing out here because that's what will get you a little off kilter. Okay, I'm going to do just one more. Okay, so last guy, we know where he's going. We did left, going to do it right. And I can feel that I didn't get this seam along here. I've got a crease, but it isn't going to affect what I'm sewing. So once I get this sewn, I'll fix that crease. I couldn't see it, but I can feel it. Oh, I almost tipped my whole pin cushion over. So before I flip this over, I'm just going to come back in here and push that seam out. That's why you really, for the most part, you're better off to kind of do your finger press or even your roller before you take the iron to it. Okay, so there we go. How are we doing so far? Everybody, yeah, there we go, this way. Looks kind of funny, doesn't it? And again, you would keep going whatever distance you want to go. So this works best with the right size ruler, and it's a different ruler. So this ruler is a little big. Let me do it this way, and I'm going to see if I can come in a little more with the camera. Hold on. What we want to do, I'm going to have to turn it when I go to cut it, but what we want to do is pay no attention to the center or the left side. What we want to do is we want to be in with the ruler far enough that, let me see. So if I was out here, can you, oh, wait a minute, hold on. Hold on 1 second. I'm just looking to see what I can put underneath that. Yeah, get Caspian school schedule. Okay. So I want to be over far enough with the ruler that I'm getting the edge of where these fabrics end. So if I'm here, I don't have any spaces. If I come out further, can you see? There's a space there, space there, space there, where the white is. Can you see that okay? So if I'm out too far, there. You see how there's, well, I'm trying to do it so that you don't get the light. There, right there. That's the paper. So I'm out too far. I've got to come in so that I have, got to come in a little more. I've got to come in so that I have fabric. So look, right there, I got to make sure that there's fabric all the way to the edge of the ruler. So let me see if I cut this one, if it'll make more sense. The other thing I really want to pay attention to, because I need to know I'm straight. So if I match this corner, so let's see, what's the best? I'm trying to think of the easiest way to do this. So I want to make sure I have fabric under this the whole way. But I want to make sure my ruler's straight. But I don't really have any straight lines. Well, I have, let me see if this works. I have my 45-degree line here, and it follows along this seam. If I have my fabric, and I'm trying these out to see which one works better. So if I have the point of my fabric in line with the mat, and the point of my square in line with the mat, so let me do this. So if I just take that point down, don't do this yet, I'm going to see if this works. And that point down, because see, you're learning as I'm learning. So if I flip this up, I just want to make sure those points are supposed to both be the same. So if they're both the same, I flipped it up so I'm even across here. So that tells me those points are both in the same place. Does that kind of make sense? Does that make sense a little bit? Because you can't, because you have a left and right point, a left and right, yeah, I guess it's a point. See, first there's a point here, then there's a point over here. So there's no center point to follow up. But what I want to see is, so now at least I know my fabric is straight. So don't cut yours yet. Let me wreck mine if you need to. So I've placed my ruler down so that it catches the edge of every fabric. Some will be longer, and the edge I mean is not this edge out here, but the edge where the two fabrics are sewn together. And I want to make sure I'm using my mat lines. So, and I'm taking my ruler line, one of my ruler lines, and I'm lining it up in the same spot along here. Okay? So now it's nice and straight. Okay? So I'm going to turn it around because it's easier. Let's try that again. I hadn't tried it this way before, so if this works good, then it's perfect. I'm using that low tack tape, and it's really low tack. I was trying to see, so this is a 6-inch ruler, and it's too big. So it's hard to get the right size ruler. And I see, gotta go over. So don't think like there's a center line to match this. I'm just making sure the fabric is straight. And I should be able to now, it should be straight along here. And I'm coming to the edge. Okay, so it's still looking a little funny still. And now I've got to come across the top the same way. And you will, so I'm going to line my ruler up across here. I'm at the edge. I'm at the edge of this fabric. So it may be this fabric, it may be this fabric, but I can't go any further with the ruler because I'll have no fabric here. I have plenty over here, but I don't over here. And that's the way it'll be. It'll be either this side or that side. But I want to make sure I'm nice and straight across this way. It's almost like this doesn't have an eyeball center to it. And then I'm going to turn it. And again, I'll turn it so you can see. Because I can't cut from that direction, but. So I'm lining up along here, here, and I'm just making sure that I have all the fabric under the ruler. So I can't come out in these little sections. So really, that's really not a lot of waste when you're working on angles. So you can see how short this little guy ends up being. But this can be your little sample. So did anybody? So there it is. So see, you just got a little here, but you have to have that little bit because you're working on these angles. There has to be something filling in that angle. So now it's nice and straight across the bottom, and that square was plenty. There was plenty there. And then across all sides. But you can't, there's nowhere to go up the center because there's no center line to follow. Does that kind of make sense? Because see, the center's here, then it's 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 here. So I go by the edge, and it should probably be the same on each side. But I have to say that taping that little point and the point of the square onto a line on the mat helped me know where the ruler was straight. Does anybody have any questions on that? So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, let me go backwards again. Here we go. I was just comparing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is up to here. And so this is the same amount of strips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that? You see the difference? So this, from here down, on the big one is the same amount of strips as the little one. Okay, is everybody doing okay? So I thought I would try one more thing. And I'll experiment. You can watch and I'll experiment. So I'm going to keep these two in my resource book. I'm going to make note of this is a 2.5, this is a 1.5, and what strips I use and how long they were. This one was 5 inches long, and this one was 6.5. So on the big sample, I used the rectangle, and I just took the size of the rectangle, the length, and that's 6.5. So if you're using the strip set and you want this look, you're just going to cut your pieces, your pieces after you cut your strip, cut your pieces 6.5. Okay? And whatever size you use for your strips, you're using the same size for your square. So this is a 2.5, I use a 2.5 square. The other one was 1.5, I used the 1.5 square. Okay? Oh, geez, I'm making a mess here. Now, I still have some 2.5s left. So let me just put that over there. And that one there. And I want to see, while I was waiting today, I want to see what happens. Hold on, bear with me. I'm gonna lay another one out. And I hope I have enough of these. No, I'm gonna hold on a second. I want to do this. I have to think about this for a minute now. Yes, it's gonna work. You see what I'm doing? So oh, I got one more. Oh, what do you think of that? Oh, Cindy, I should have said clever. I wondered what I thought maybe you were in the in the mojitos or something. It's a little too much wine tonight. So what do you think of that? And then I have this extra one. So remember, I only have these 4 cut. So I don't want to move one down here. I'm just gonna stick the extra strip down there. Okay, so how do we sew these together? So you notice I laid it all out before I got full of myself and decided to just sew. So that's sew, S-E-W, and then sew, S-O. What you want to do is you want to take the right side and we're going to sew the square to the top of the right side strips. Okay. Oh, you like it, Precious? And I think that if you're going to do this, you really need to have a dominant color here. I mean, if you put some little drab color there, then what would be the point? You know what I'm saying? Cindy, I'm drinking heavy tonight. Where is it? I got my Moxie. And for those of you that don't know what it is, no, it's just what do you call it? Soda. Just soda. Okay. So you notice I kind of just pulled them aside because I don't want to disrupt my order of things. And I'm not going to bother putting one on the bottom one because that pretty much gets cut off, though you could if it was bothering you to not have it. You want data? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I had to check with Caspian to make sure he was on data and not streaming. Okay. So I pulled these just a little ways away. I'm just going to flip this down. And again, I'm going to stick a pin in it because I don't want to be sewing over on the wrong side. Now, you could chain piece those and put them back, but when I'm working on something like this, I try to make life easy on myself, and I just do one, put it back, do one, put it back. Sometimes being in a rush isn't helpful. My sewing machine went to sleep on me. And all I'm really going to do is, I'm not going to get all into the pressing right now. I'm just going to take one. Okay. And you can put your pin in. I'm just going to pinch it there for the sake of time. Put it back. So let's see. If this one here is a braid, this would be a French braid. Sounds good anyway. And you would take your time and make sure all your seam allowances are the same. I can tell you that probably mine aren't, because I'm kind of rushing now. Oh, and I have no thread in my needle. Okay, how we looking? Looking pretty good? All right, so this time, don't you like it like I start a sentence and just stop? This time I'm just going to use my roller. But you could take it and press it. I can't because I just don't have enough room here. But as long as they're laying down nice and flat, the seams are pretty flat, we're good. Okay? So we're all back together like we should be, correct? Right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. How's that? And then you would do the exact same thing. Do we have time enough to? Yeah, we'll get a little time. I'll try to move it along. Okay, so I'm going to flip down. And remember, I'm sewing. Oh, see, I almost did it in the wrong place. I'm sewing here. Flip down. Put your pin in. And I really normally would put a pin in. And I'm going to press behind me, so I'm saving a little time. Oh, I almost pressed on the school notes. Okay, put that back. Now, here's the downside of this. These seams should match up. So one needs to be up, one needs to be down. I just pressed this one up. This one needs to be pushed down. So I'm pushing it down towards the blue. Okay, so now when I flip these over, I've got to match my seams. This is the only time you'd have to match your seams. The regular braid, you don't. Okay? So I can feel I've matched my seams because the bottom one's going left, top one's going right. I just want to be careful on that bottom one to make sure that my underneath seam doesn't flip back up. So I would have my pin like we normally do. So the next one I'll pin it proper. And I always stop and make sure everybody's in line on the right-hand side. So let's see if I can get my press in here. There we go. So set my seam, pushing it up. Okay, I don't have it perfect, but it's close enough to perfect. It's a tad off. It's hard to tell because that blue stripe is right there. It kind of throws your eyes off. That's a good thing. Okay, sliding it just like before, slide it back in place. So now the left one is no square. So it's a square, no square, square, no square, square, no square. Okay? And we're coming down this long side. So in this side, there's no seam to match. But I'll put my pin in so I know which side to sew down, because I'll tell you, you'll get discombobulated. I'm trying to keep my hand out of your way. Well, that was a crooked path if I ever took one. And this time I want to remember to really push that seam out. Remember how I had that crease before? Okay, back in place. How we doing? Again, we're going to match up that seam. So I'm going to flip it over. And so I'm guessing that these seams with the square are going to be pressed towards the long part. Because when I open this and flip it up, because this is on top, that seam is always going towards that strip. So when you do these, press the seam. So I'm headed towards the square. I want to be headed towards the long strip. So now I should be all set. Okay, so left, right, flip it over. The first thing I'm going to do before I even line this up is I'm lining up my seam first. And I want to make sure I can feel the whole way down that it's nice and flat. And like we always do, we're going to pin a little past the seam, because I like to leave the pin in as I stitch over the seam. If I come up to the seam and the pin's in the seam, and I mean in the seam allowance, and I pull that pin out, I could very well shift that fabric. And then I'll go back and make sure that I'm lined up at my edges. And I can put a pin over here, because I really do want to make sure this is straight. I'm not sewing out here, but this needs to be straight. This needs to be straight. And of course, see, I've got extra fabric, so the bottom doesn't matter. So I've stitched on the seam. Now I can take my pin out, and I'm holding my fabric when I take my pin out. Keeping an eye on the right side. This is kind of exciting, getting this new one. This is 2 for the price of 1 night. Now, oh, I lined this one up better. But see, I've got a little over, and that probably means that it's all about this seam allowance and this seam allowance. So I'm going to do a little trim there. And I'm going to make sure that before I trim, before I decide what needs to be taken off, my ruler needs to decide what needs to be taken off. So I'm lined up along this edge of my fabric, and I'm lined up, and I normally would probably have a little bit longer ruler. I want to make sure I'm lined up with this fabric. So you understood when I said that the ruler decides where to trim, not you. Because sometimes we do that and we trim where we think we should, and then we got into more of a mess. And then I'm going to put this back in line again. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? Okay, so anybody have any questions? Shall we keep going a little bit? Okay. See, nobody answered. I said, okay, I could hear you. So, right, left. So, square, no square, square, no square. And no seam line up here. We're just lining up with those edges. We're still running a 1-pin block. You could, if you're doing a quilt that has all different blocks in it, you could put some of these in for blocks. Maybe over the summertime, and you guys will have to let me know in the chat. Maybe we'll work on a project again like we did the Christmas table run, or maybe we'll work on a project with this braid, because we can do this braid. How do I explain this? And you don't trim it, and then you can sew 2 braids together. Yeah, I can hear you going, what? So you notice I'm not out at that edge. Keeping my business in here. My ironing business is in here. And again, you notice I put it back in place. And honestly, I do the exact, when I sew here with you, as a rule, I sew exactly how I would sew if I was by myself. I make the same mistakes by myself. I believe in when you're sewing, you don't want it to be a mental stress any more than it has to be, because sometimes it can be a real mental stress. So that's why I take it simple. I line this back up and I say, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. If I lined up to this one, it wouldn't make any sense. Okay. I'm going to flip this over. I want to feel that seam allowance, that they're side by side, so I shouldn't feel any bump at all. And I want to make sure, I was in line here. And I'm going to put my pin a little ways down. And I actually have become fond of putting the pin over here because it lines the top and this side. And I'm checking here again, make sure that seam is straight the whole way down. Because I can leave that pin in, see it? I can leave that pin in the whole time I'm sewing. But also, it's not flopping around, losing its connection, getting a little wild and out of control. It's there to stay. So if it's pinned here, it can't move here. I mean, obviously it can open, but it can't get off kilter. And I probably check this 3 more times. I'm feeling the seam to make sure it's right. And see when let me back up a little bit. Let me back up a little more. Oh, there we go. Even here, I'm feeling across that seam to make sure it didn't get itself into trouble while it was on its trip over to the machine. And you notice where my fingers are, right on that seam. Okay, and now I get past the seam, I can take my pin up. But this hand, my left hand, is holding that fabric down. And I know you hear me say this practically every video, but we have to remember that someone new watching might watch, video number 6 and not number, 1 through 5. So I know I do repeat that stuff. When I get close to the edge, I want to make sure that edge is lined up. Okay, we got 1 more to go, and then I'll see about squaring it up. So what are we going? Looks good, looks great. Yes, okay. Oh, thanks, Christine. Sometimes, Christine, it's not talent, it's the inability to know when you can't do something. I say it's fabric. Let's give it a whirl. I'm telling you, I'm going to have to all the time, I'm going to have to sew standing up. It's looking pretty good. Okay, going back into my slot, and I know, right, left, block, no block. I'm anxious now to see how this will trim. See, I almost came over and did this. Gotta watch it. And if you should sew on the wrong side, it's okay. Let it go. It's no big deal. Just undo it and move on. It's funny. I'm looking in on the screen and it looks like right here. It's just black as black can be, that like I've got some kind of block or something. And it's really not that dark in the room. It just looks like this, like, I don't know. Looks funny. Okay, back we go. We got our last one. Now, should you end with another one? I don't know. We'll find out. But you see, when I went back and pressed all of the squares, the seam allowance towards the strip, I didn't have to fool around with that anymore. Well, we're going to 2 pins now. I didn't think about that. 2 pins. We're doing 2 pins. Watch out. Watch out, Lynn. I'm doing 2 pins. And see, I forgot and took my pin out too early. So I'm feeling to make sure my seam allowance is lined up. Okay, last one. Is everybody like sitting on the edge of their seats, waiting to see what's going to happen? I am. Okay. I'm going to shut my iron off so that it takes an hour for it to cool. All right, so here we go. Now, I can't do this in this direction because I don't have enough table. All right, so is this square now the center? I think it might be. How do we determine that? Well, I take a ruler. So this is a 6-inch ruler. Doesn't matter what size as long as it's not a half size. And I'm looking at the 3-inch mark, running down the center of those yellow squares. And what I'm looking at is you see me like, oh, geez. I have to lean my hand on my head on my hand to think. There we go. So what I'm looking at is I want to see if I've got the same amount of fabric on either side. Now, I'm going to be trimming way out here. I'm not going to be trimming way in here. But I want to just see if this is really my center. So I'm more of a visual person, I guess. I do better if I see it. So if I look at my ruler, 1.5, my corner point of this square is at 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, roughly. It's not going to be perfect, but they're pretty much the same. Now I want to look on this side, 1.5, 1.5. See, I'm not dead center there. So it's 1.5 and a little more, and 1.5 and a little more, and I'm pretty straight to the center. My ruler was a little crooked. And if I look up here, I'm at 1 and not quite a half, or a little, or a little, well, yeah, a little less than a half. But I'm the same on each side. And I'm looking out here where these ends are, and they look about this. See, this one's a little. And it's going to be hard because your sewing isn't going to be perfect. Mine really isn't perfect. So I'm trying to look at the points of these squares to see if they land about in the same place on the ruler. Does that make sense? And do I have about the same distance past the ruler? So if I know it sounds like a lot, but to me it's easier if I use a ruler. So if I come out here, I'm looking now at where I would be trimming, and it's about 1.5. And then I'll go on this side, and it's about 1.5. So these are the center. So do you see how I did that? If you've got a better way, you get the abacus out or whatever is easier for you, that's fine. I tend to do it by, okay, I got this centered. Everybody's good here. There's an even distance out from these squares. And then I want to, because I'm really trimming out here, I need to make sure that the distance, now I know this ruler is good, and it's in that center, and I got even on each side. So when I lay another ruler on, and I measure out to where I'm going to trim, because I'm going to trim right here where these fabrics meet, I want to have the same distance on the left and right. So I have about 1.5, and I have about 1.5. Okay, so I know now that these squares are in the center. Okay, that makes sense? So I can guide myself by those centers. So I'm going to lay my ruler down where it needs to be to trim. And then I'm going to look over here and see if I've got the same line coming all the way down through the center of my squares, and I do. That's pretty exciting. And again, you might have one that's a little centimeter or two left, a little centimeter or two right, and a centimeter is like, the width of your thread practically. So, because your sewing is not going to be perfect. And I always say it's not your prom dress, but I also say, do you want it right? Do you want it perfect, or do you want it done? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to glare you there. Because a lot of times in sewing, one day you're a great sewer, another day not so much. Your 1/4 inch seam allowance is one day it's one way, another day it's another. So, we're just human beings. We're just human beings trying to do our best. And if you had a longer piece, use a longer ruler. If you have a real long piece like you're doing a border, when you cut this, and let me go ahead and cut this. And now that I jab it, I want to make sure that, okay, I'm good. So if you think about it, that's not a lot of waste there. Oh, now I hit something with my mouse. Hold on a second. God only knows what I did. Okay, sorry. So there I am. If I have a real long piece, whatever ruler I'm using, working in whatever amount of space I have, because we all have different amount of space. So this is what is it? This is a 12-inch ruler. I want half of this ruler, so 6 inches of it, on the part I just cut. And then the rest on the part you're going to cut. Well, let's say I'll even let you get away with 5. But you don't want like this much. You need a good amount that's on the part that's already cut to make sure this ruler is straight. And it should line up over here on the part of your braid that's up here in the exact same spot that it did on the first cut. Make sense? All right, so let's go the other way this time. And again, it should line up with the same exact, it's a loose term there. The same exact, so I got to make sure I'm over far enough. So I'm looking right here to make sure that I'm lined up with the seam for the blue and the seam for the yellow meet, and the white and the blue and the blue and the white. And I should be on about the same line as I was when I cut this side on my yellow. Okay? So we're looking good so far? Okay, so if you want to get this last block in, I think you're going to have to do 2 pieces without the yellow. And I don't have 2 pieces left. I only have 1. Because I've got to come way back here to cut. You see what I mean? So instead of adding this, let me pretend I didn't. Instead of adding the square in your last right-hand side, let's say I did just a regular, and I'll need a longer strip because I need to make up for that 2.5 inches. So this strip needs to be longer. But then when I cut, I'm not losing that yellow square. Now, if you don't mind, it's not a big deal. But if you have a limited amount of them, or because we're going to cut here, you see? So technically, I could sew this on to match this one. So if I sewed this side matched and this side didn't come up to this one, of course I can't see underneath now, that hole there wouldn't matter. Does that make sense? See, that hole wouldn't matter there because we're cutting it off. I try not to worry about those things, but I know some people do. Now, I do myself on occasion. I just try not to. So see, this didn't matter. So if I put 2 regular strips here, and this right-hand strip only came up as far as this last yellow square, I'd have been perfectly fine. This is actually going to come out almost like a block because I didn't do it that long. And remember, I'm checking here, making sure that my ruler and the edge of my braid is even. And I'm coming down here on the right side so that I'm cutting where I have no fabric here. So I have to cut. So this is just about a square. It's 9 inches, 9-inch square. But see how that worked out. So in the case of putting that square in the middle, the square is the same size as this square was here. So the square is going to be whatever the width of your fabric is. So if your fabric is 2.5, it's a 2.5 square. If this was 2, this would be 2 square. And you're going to, and you can do it if you know these 10 strips are going on the right and these other 10 or 20 strips are going on the left. If you know that, then you can go ahead and sew these squares onto all your right sides and line them up. I just line them up first because it's too much commitment for me to do it otherwise. Okay, so now you have, or you will have, you get all this out of the way. Okay, so there's our first one, regular braid, go on forever. This was 2.5-inch strips by, I know I keep forgetting, by 6.5. So this braid, this bigger braid, was made with the rectangle out of the, let me move some stuff out of my way here, hold on. So this is the Build-A-Block Plus, and it's the right hand 2.5. Remember, there's a 2.5 that's longer, 6.5, and then there's a 2.5 that's shorter. And you wouldn't want it shorter because of that trimming that you have to do. You might have a braid that, well, you just have the middle probably. So it's out of this right hand side, 2.5 by 6.5. If you're rotary cutting, it's 2.5 by 6.5. Or if you have an Accuquilt cutter or whatever the case may be. But this is out of the Build-A-Block Plus. Okay? When I did this little fella here, this was using the strip set, and I'll show you why. Well, hold on. Maybe I'll be lying. Hold on. So 1.5. let's see. It's 1.5 by, so the 1.5 out of the Build-A-Block Plus is 1.5 by 4.5, and you could use that, but I did mine 5, or say you wanted to do it 6, whatever the case may be. You're using the 1.5 out of the strip dies that they don't cut here and they don't cut here. So what I would do is I would take like my yellow, and you cut it a little bigger and fold it, and then put this on to cut one long strip like you would normally do a strip for a border or a binding or whatever. And then I would just come back with my rotary cutter and cut the 6, 6.5, 5, whatever you want to have it. That way, that would be very easy to do. So this was a 1.5 by 5, this particular one. So it had a 1.5 square. The last one we did, which we'll call the French braid, I'll have to look it up. Maybe it is a French braid. But the only word I know besides braid is French braid. So this one I did the 2.5 out of the same as this one was. So it's a 2.5 by 6.5 out of the Build-A-Block Plus. So you have a 2.5. Which one is the 2.5? Okay, so this one in here in the strip set is 2.5 by 6. But because the ends don't cut, it doesn't matter. It just means that you have to fold your fabric a little bit shorter than the die, because it's not going to cut on the 2 short ends. Does that make sense? And whatever width you do your strips, the square is going to match. 2.5-inch strip, 2.5-inch square. 1.5-inch strip, 1.5-inch square. And we're putting the squares on the right side strips, the top of the right side strips. So left, no square, right square, left, no square. So it's square, no square, square, no square, left, right, left, right, left, right. Does that kind of make sense? Did that give you enough time to write some stuff down? So I will post these pictures tomorrow. I say that weekly, don't I? Weekly as in W-E-A-K-L-E, not weekly as in W-E-E-K-L-E. I will try to post these tomorrow in Miss Loreens Schoolhouse Facebook page. If you're interested in doing a project, it'll be once a week over a few weeks, doing the braid, and I'll obviously do the project ahead, because I'm not committing you to a project and then you go, yeah, I don't like that. But if you're interested in doing some kind of project like we did the Christmas runner where we did so much each week, we can do that. So you can just let me know there. I know some people don't go on Facebook, but I think you can leave a message on this YouTube when it finishes publishing up. I think you can put a comment over on the right. Rhonda might know that better than I do. Okay, but we'll figure something out. Okay, so I made these to go in my resource book. And again, you'll make your notes and put them with it, and whatever notes make sense to you. And put those in your resource book, because you might not be making a project today, tomorrow, next week, or this summer, or this fall, but you may want it. This little one would make a nice border around a quilt. Okay? So thanks again for everyone joining in. And we ended up going a little extra, but that's okay. Next time we'll go a little less. Everyone have a nice evening. And Saturday, let's see, Saturday I don't work. I don't believe I do. Which is day after. So I don't work Saturday. So Saturday Sew Along is at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I will put the project up tomorrow, hopefully, tomorrow afternoon, or as early as I can. Okay, so thanks again for everyone for joining in. And I'm sorry that was glaring at you. And I'll either see you next Thursday night at 7, or we'll chat and sew together on Saturday at 1 p.m., both Eastern Standard Time. Thanks again for everybody joining in. Have a nice night.